just all-in team fight potential being a factor. So for the next clip that I'm going to look at, it's actually a fight around Dragon, and I think TSM misplays it. But no, it was the next one where TSM actually ended up ultimately coming out ahead, but okay. This is a little bit of a misplay by TSM. And this is where we kind of see one of the weaknesses of C9 as a team start to come out. So, what timing was this at, actually? 5:12. Okay, so right here. TSM are grouped up. They've got this pressure on the mid tower. And, you know, they've even got this Mundo in the top lane. So, you know, Balls realizes, yeah, okay, if I sit up here in the top lane and split push against Mundo, I'm not going to be able to join this fight, which is where I'm ultimately going to be strongest. He has this team out, actually, so that he can push back Darius and keep him from split pushing too hard, which I think was a good decision. But now that Balls has joined C9 here, this means that the longer that TSM stall this, if they just like siege the mid lane, you know, they can even maybe give away Dragon if they just push up the mid lane and then have Mundo join them in the fight with teleport, because he can get that top tower. So, you know, the longer they stall, the farther Mundo is going to get, and the more map pressure they get from Dr. Mundo. But Odd One just ends up being a little trigger happy here. So he flashes in, goes on high. And, you know, this fight is extremely split up, and C9, of course, has the advantage in fights. And Darius feels like, yeah, I have to teleport at this point, because why did my team start a fight? So he's teleporting in on Mundo. The teleport's now down, so that's going to stall out TSM's split push pressure, which is really the strongest advantage they have. So C9 comes out of that with 2 kills. And they actually end up going to do the Dragon instead of pushing mid, which ultimately allows TSM to get the mid lane. And there's a little bit of a threat. I think the reason that TSM didn't want to just push the mid lane is because of the threat of C9 finishing the Dragon and then coming from the back for a flank. But, you know, like I said, they had the Mundo split pushing. That's a lot of pressure on the map. And with C9 grouped, you know, it's on C9 to make a play, while TSM just pushes the lanes. But now C9, this is kind of a weakness in C9's decision making. They'll almost always prioritize the Dragon over lane pressure. So TSM actually gets this mid tower, and they wisely rotate to avoid the flank from C9, which is pretty much what you should do if you're at Dragon and another team is pushing. So, yeah, kind of a funky call by TSM. Really Odd One going in too early, no one to follow up with him, and then just this front line from C9 does really good work. So the next play is actually C9 or TSM making the same mistake again. It's quite a while later, because it's at Dragon again, and Dragon, you know, it takes some time to respawn. Okay. So both teams are grouped up around the Baron, and it's exactly the same situation again. They can stall and do the split push pressure game. And, you know, TSM really doesn't need to force anything here. But they choose to go in on a fight. So this is actually where C9 is playing pretty smart. They've got kind of the split push pressure going, keeping pressure on TSM so that TSM kind of relies on their 5v5 engage. So they really hastily go in on this engage. Darius came down really early, like as if they wanted to 5v5 siege the Baron, which is kind of awkward. But C9 turned this around. I think they get 2 kills again, or maybe just the 1. But, I mean, obviously this is not good for TSM, and it gives C9 the Dragon. But this is where the differences between these two teams start to come into play, and this is where C9's kind of hyper focus on the dragon goes kind of sour for them. So TSM just backing away, but in the time that it takes C9 to go for this dragon, TSM can take towers, and that's exactly what they do. I think they already get the mid lane tower they didn't get, but C9 go for this dragon, and then TSM just rotate top. They traded tier 2 tower for dragon, which is not worthwhile, and C9 tries to trade that back by pushing down this mid lane, and they have several recalls to go deal with TSM here, and then they send, I think, 3 people, Ezreal, Lemon, or Sneaky, Lemon, and High to this mid lane, but they have to stay just a little bit too long, and High ends up getting picked off here. They do get the tower, but High gets picked off, and that kind of sets off a snowball chain of events that ultimately play out in TSM's favor. So I actually kind of want to just watch this game play out for a little bit, because it's really interesting how it works. Because in that trade specifically, neither team gained a definitive advantage. It was basically a 1-for-1 trade in champion kills, because Xpecial died earlier and then High died just now. But of course, because High died just now and C9 didn't exactly keep TSM from putting pressure on the map, because they went and pushed that open lane that Darius had gotten shoved with his split pushing, while C9 was just taking the dragon, so there's no map pressure there. So they traded the dragon for the tower, and then they got another tower there. So I mean, you could argue that that's a good trade for C9, but this gives TSM an opportunity to make plays and make things happen. So they go in on Lemonation. I think they do get this kill on Lemonation, because Lemonation doesn't have his flash up. So at this point, that rotation, that quick decision by TSM to go for the top tower and then rotate back and stop the push in mid is working out for them, because they picked up several more kills, and they're just setting up bush ganks here. Cloud9 kind of has to check the Baron, because there's a risk that TSM is actually doing Baron, but they get multiple ganks off just from this one little rotation that they do, and that's absolutely huge. That's incredible, because it ultimately sets up this Baron that TSM does, and after they secure this Baron, so you'll see how that chain of events just completely snowballed in TSM's favor. They set up one gank after another, while C9 wasn't fully, they didn't have all members available on the map, and it turned into just this large advantage where TSM can pick up the Baron. And C9 try to get in here. They really try to stop the Baron, but the Smite, of course, secures that, because they killed Meteos. So at this point, I actually like what C9 do. They just force little skirmishes all over the map. Can you guys see this? I hope you can. Okay, you can. But they force just little skirmishes over the map, and they keep TSM tied up for quite a while, just trying to deal with them. And the purpose of that is just to stall out the Baron, because they know, TSM's in this power spike because they've got Baron. So let's waste as much of their time while they have Baron as possible, and just keep fighting them. So I think eventually they get away. Neither team ends up getting any kills here. It's just C9 being obnoxious. But unfortunately, this bottom lane was pushing for TSM, so that leaves a pretty big opening for TSM to take the tower later, because that's a lot of damage that the minions are getting down. And it went from a quite even game to TSM having the Baron and being really at the advantage. And they still don't even have a gold lead, but they're able to use the Baron so effectively, and they push it, And I think, was that the last clip I was going to watch, actually? Let's see. Eventually they win the game. Yeah, so that was actually the last clip that I wanted to watch. So that's all I really have to say about that. TSM won this game, really well executed by them. Of course, taking advantage of the power window that they have with Baron to siege and eventually take towers. And obviously you see they're even in gold, so that's where these advantages that you gain from more things than just gold, from every imbalance that you can find in the game, is really important to take advantage of to get a lead on your opponent. And this was an awesome game to watch. It honestly kind of exhibits the difference, or what the current metagame is like, where C9 had this really team fighting oriented composition, but they didn't focus so much on map pressure, and TSM just really heavily focused on map pressure. They rotated and they prioritized that second tier tower over the dragon, which is worth more than the dragon for sure, and they eventually outplayed C9 to win the game. It's really awesome. Both of these teams are really well matched, and I look forward to the next time they play against each other, because it is always really good game. And I have to give TSM a ton of credit, because they have improved so much. Picking up Bjergsen was the best thing that has ever happened to TSM, honestly. And it's more than just that. Like, their decision making and play calling has improved as well, because they don't constantly have Reginald going on tilt every game. But I don't want to bag on Reginald. Reginald's an alright guy. He's just really emotional in game. But anyway, that's it for what I wanted to talk about. Oh, I was just showing you black screen for a while. My bad, sorry. That's it that I wanted to talk about for Play Like the Pros today. Thank you so much for watching.